a renowned professor of constitutional law, Ergun Özbudun, and other jurists has accused President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan of violating the constitution with his recent remarks about Turkey's government turning into a de facto presidential system and calling for a constitutional framework to finalize this transition. Speaking in the Black Sea province of Rize on Friday, Erdoğan said, "You can either accept it or not. Turkey's government system has been de facto changed in this regard. What should be done now is finalize the legal framework of this de facto situation with a new constitution." Turkey has a parliamentary system, while Erdoğan supports the formation of a Turkish-style presidential system, a strong unicameral rather than bicameral system, which he claims will help the country's development by eliminating multi-headedness in state governance and thus pave the way for a more effective decision-making system. His ambitions were disrupted after the Justice and Development Party, AK Party, Erdoğan's former party, lost its majority on June 7, but he seeks to realize his plans after a prospective snap election later this year. Erdoğan said the reason for the de facto system change is the presidential election held on August 10, 2014, as a result of which Erdoğan was elected to the top state post by getting around 52% of the nationwide vote. Following a constitutional amendment in 2007, Erdoğan was elected by the public, not by parliament as former presidents were. According to Özbudun, Erdoğan's remarks are an open confession that he is violating the constitution and the current de facto situation in the country runs against the constitution. Erdoğan says the de facto situation is against the constitution, let's have the constitution to adjust to it, he said. Recalling that the authorities of the president are well defined in the constitution, the professor said, a system change cannot take place upon the president's will. The 1982 Constitution clearly sets which authorities the president has and which authorities he does not, that text is still valid. So, it is out of the question for a system change to have taken place. Özbudun also lamented the fact that some people and judges in the country who have never been involved in the slightest act of violence or unlawfulness are being accused of attempting to abolish the constitution through use of force and violence. He was referring to two judges who were jailed in May after they decided for the release of journalist Hidayet Karaca and dozens of police officers who were arrested as a result of politically motivated operations by the government following the eruption of a corruption scandal in late 2013 implicating senior members of the government. Another jurist, Professor Sami Karahan, commented on Erdoğan's controversial statements from his Twitter account. He wrote in a series of tweets, "A coup took place on Turkey on August 14, 2015. A system change and installation of a de facto presidential system were announced. The rest is said to be procedure. The AKP party, which lost the elections but has not lost power, which deceives everyone but convinces everyone of its having been deceived, which changes the regime without changing the constitution, is a master of perception management. If you ignore the constitution and announce a de facto presidential system, some may come up in the same way and declare their autonomy." Former Republican People's Party, CHP, Deputy Attila Kart, who is also a jurist, wrote from his Twitter account that Erdoğan and the AK party government will politically and legally be responsible for Erdoğan's remarks, which he said are tantamount to a coup. He said Erdoğan is staging a coup against the constitution. Although Erdoğan is constitutionally required to remain above politics, he campaigned for the June 7 general election like a political party leader and held public rallies in many parts of the country during which he asked for 400 deputies to be elected for the AK party. Having 400 deputies would enable Erdoğan to push for his dream of a system change. According to Hikmet Sami Türk, a former justice minister and professor of constitutional law, the results of the June 7 election were a clear response to Erdoğan's aspirations for a system change. The public did not even give 276 deputies to the AK party to establish a single-party government when they were hoping to have 400 deputies to press ahead with constitutional changes, said Türk, as he accused Erdoğan of intervening in the work of the government and, instead of Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu, trying to rule Turkey. The president has been sharply criticized by the opposition for continuing to meddle in the affairs of the government, despite the fact that Turkey's president is required by the constitution to cut off ties with his party and remain neutral. Another expert on constitutional law, Professor Levent Koker, said Erdoğan's Friday statements are full of contradictions because he says a de facto situation has emerged. But he also says Erdoğan has never acted outside of his constitutional boundaries. If he did not go beyond the constitutional boundaries, a de facto situation cannot emerge. If a de facto situation has emerged, this means he went beyond his authorities and was involved in actions that are legally not valid, Koker told today's Zaman. The professor said it is very strange for Erdoğan to see the results of the June 7 general election as a failure for himself because he did not personally run in the elections. He toured Turkey like a political party leader throughout the campaigning process and made speeches. He conducted a harsh campaign against opposition parties and wanted 400 deputies for the AK party. Since his aspirations were not fulfilled, this issue of a system switch should be closed, the professor said. A professor of law, Metin Gündü, told today's Zaman that there is no need to say much about Erdoğan's remarks as they mean an obvious confession of a coup because it is the habit of coup leaders to first create a de facto situation and then make the necessary constitutional changes accordingly. The constitution is there as it is. What is the de facto thing? The presidential election was held and Erdoğan received 52% of the vote. He says he is the first president who was elected in a direct vote. He forgets the fact that the leader of the 1980 military coup, Kenan Evren, was also elected president in a direct vote. Second, Turkey only changed the way the president is elected, and there is no change in the president's authorities in the constitution, said Gündü.